Let's talk about empathy. No, not the kind they write poems about, the kind that's weaponized. When I was a boy in South Africa, I saw things. Not just the casual brutality of school, where you learn the difference between a fist and a boot, but something quieter, something in the air, a society that believed with religious fervor that it was built on a grand moral principle, a principle of separation, of keeping things in order, of managing groups. They called it civilization. They called it duty. They called it God's plan. And in the shadow of that grand, sweeping empathy for their own people, for their own way of life, individual human beings were broken, not as an accident, as a necessary output. Well, I didn't have the words for it then, I just had the model in my head, a model of systems, and I saw that the system was optimized for a category, our kind, their kind. It was not optimized for the girl who lived down the road, or the man who fixed bicycles, or the child who looked confused when the bus drove past. Those were not individuals, they were data points in a demographic. I learned a terrible early lesson. You can love humanity and yet be utterly ruthless to a human. In fact, loving humanity often requires that you be ruthless to humans. Why? Because humanity is an abstraction. It is a clean, weightless idea, a concept. It asks nothing of you but a feeling, a warm, glowing sensation in your chest, the sense that you care about everyone. But a human? A human is messy. A human is specific. A human has inconvenient needs, contradictory beliefs, a face that is tired or angry or pleading. A human does not fit the narrative. A human requires action, not sentiment, and action is costly. We have built, in this century, the ultimate machinery for this betrayal. We have built digital platforms that run on the fuel of abstract empathy. You scroll. You see a suffering on the other side of the planet. You feel a pang. You press a button, a heart, a thumbs up, a share. You have performed empathy. You have raised awareness. The system rewards you with a little dopamine hit. You are a good person. You care. And then your phone rings. It's your brother. He's struggling. He's made bad choices. He needs a place to stay, or money, or just an hour of your undivided, patient, non-judgmental attention. What do you feel? Now, not a warm glow. You feel a weight, an inconvenience, a resentment, because your brother is not an abstraction. He is a specific, complicated problem. Helping him will not get you likes. It will cost you time, energy, peace. It will require you to engage with moral ambiguity, because he is not an innocent victim in a viral post. He is a flawed person who helped create his own mess. So what do? You send him to voicemail, and you go back to scrolling, back to feeling for everyone. This is the great psychological bait and switch of our time. We have outsourced our moral conscience to the theater of abstraction. We perform empathy where it is cheap, visible, and socially rewarded. And we neglect it where it is expensive, invisible, and hard. I see this in my own world. People look at what we build, a rocket, an electric car, a brain-computer interface, and they see cold, hard engineering. They don't see the empathy. But let me tell you where the real empathy is. Empathy is not a feeling. Empathy is a design constraint. When we design a rocket, we are not thinking about humanity. We are thinking about the specific astronaut who will sit on top of that column of explosive fluid. We are thinking about her heartbeat, her family, the trust she has placed in our equations. We are thinking about the individual, one single human life. The whole system is designed around that sacred, terrifying responsibility. Bring her back alive. That is empathy. It is brutal. It is precise. It is unforgiving. It does not allow for fuzzy feelings. It requires hyper-rational, obsessive, relentless focus on the individual case. When we design a neural implant, we are not thinking about helping people with disabilities as a category. We are thinking about a specific human who cannot move, who cannot speak. We are modeling their neurons one by one. We are asking, how do we give this person back a voice? How do we avoid damaging this specific tissue? That is empathy. It is microscopic. It is surgical. It is not a sentiment. It is a voltage threshold. It is a line of code. This is what the world misunderstands. They see sentiment and they call it kindness. They see precision and they call it coldness. But here is the truth. Sentiment is lazy. Precision is love. The modern outrage machine runs on this lazy sentiment. It runs on what I call abstract empathy. It identifies a group, the oppressed, the victimized, the marginalized, and it performs a ritual of caring. It signals virtue. It posts the black square. It adds the flag to the profile. It shouts the slogan. And in doing so, it erases the actual individuals in that group. Because individuals are messy. Some of them are brave, some are cowardly, some are wise, some are foolish, some want one thing, some want the exact opposite. The group is a fiction, a useful fiction, sometimes, for solving certain kinds of problems, like legal rights or resource allocation, but a fiction nonetheless. When you direct your empathy at the fiction, you are free to be cruel to the fact. You can champion the poor, and yet despise the poor man who stands in front of you smelling of alcohol, asking for change. You can fight for the marginalized community, and yet cancel the person from that community who dares to express a heterodox thought. You can love humanity, and yet hate your neighbor for his political sign. This is not a bug in human psychology. It is a feature. It is a way to have the moral self-image without the moral cost. I have been on the receiving end of this abstract empathy. People have very strong feelings about billionaires. I am not a human to them. I am a data point in a category, a symbol. They feel a deep abstract empathy for the workers, for the poor, and that feeling requires that they despise me. It simplifies their moral math. I am the villain in their story. My individuality, my own struggles, my failures, my fears, the specific things I am trying to build, is irrelevant. It is noise. They are not being cruel to me, Elon. They are being kind to their idea of justice. But that is where the poison is. When you sacrifice a real human on the altar of a beautiful abstraction, you are not moral. You are a priest of a dark religion. So what is the alternative? The alternative is what I learned from physics. Physics does not deal in categories. Physics deals in specificities. You do not design a seal for pressure. You design it for this pressure, at this temperature, with this material, in this configuration. Any generalization, any fuzziness, and the rocket explodes. We must apply the same ruthless specificity to our morality. We must practice concrete empathy. Concrete empathy is harder, infinitely harder. It does not begin with, how do I feel about this group? It begins with, what does this one person in front of me actually need? And what can I actually do? Sometimes what they need is not what they want. Sometimes helping them requires saying no. Sometimes it requires allowing them to fail. Sometimes it requires challenging them so hard they cry in frustration. Concrete empathy is not nice. It is not soft. It is not always pleasing, but it is real. In my companies, I have had to fire people, good people, people with families. It is the worst part of leadership. If I operated on abstract empathy, I would keep them all. I would feel like a good person. But the mission, the real concrete mission of making life multiplanetary, of accelerating sustainability, would suffer. And that mission, in the long run, will help more specific individual humans than I can possibly imagine. So I must make the concrete choice, the hard choice, the choice that feels, in the abstract, cruel. I must look the individual in the eye and sever their dependency on a system that can no longer sustain them, so that the system can survive to sustain others. That is empathy for the future human, the one who doesn't exist yet. We are drowning in a world of abstract empathy. It is tearing us apart. It is making us performative, judgmental, and vicious, all while feeling perfectly righteous. Turn it off. Shut down the theater. Look at the one person you can actually help. Your annoying colleague, your difficult parent, your lonely neighbor. Not humanity, a human. Ask the concrete questions, not how do I solve poverty, but should I buy Dave a sandwich? And if I do, should I sit and eat it with him and listen to his story? That is the model. That is the design constraint. Start there, build from there, and watch as the grand, cruel empathy of the crowd fades into noise, and the quiet, precise, demanding work of actual care begins. It will not get you likes. It will not make you famous. It might even make you misunderstood. But it is the only empathy that doesn't explode on the launch pad. It is the only kind that reaches orbit. You want to feel the warmth of caring for everyone? It's a beautiful, seductive feeling. It makes you feel expansive, connected, like your heart is a sun shining on all of humanity equally. But a sun does not keep anyone warm. It is a ball of plasma, 93 million miles away. It gives light, but it cannot give a blanket. It cannot sit with a shivering child and wrap them up. The sun's love is total, and therefore it is useless. It is a magnificent abstraction. This is the first trap of abstract empathy. It confuses scope for substance. It believes that because a feeling is vast, it is meaningful. But the opposite is true. Meaning is found in narrowness, in focus, in the specific. When I first began to conceive of SpaceX, I was not thinking, I love humanity, therefore I will save it. That is a comic book motivation. It is weightless. It cannot power the all-nighters, survive the third explosion, or justify the heartbreak of telling your team you've run out of money again. No. I was thinking of a single image, a specific, almost childish picture from the books that saved me as a boy. The image of a human footprint on another world, not humanity's footprint, a footprint from one boot, worn by one person. That footprint was a promise. It said, an individual, a consciousness carried by the collective work of other individuals, can step into the impossible. The goal was never to save an abstraction called humanity. The goal was to make that single, concrete footprint possible. Abstract empathy would have killed SpaceX in its cradle, because abstract empathy, when faced with a problem, seeks consensus. It asks, does everyone feel this is right? It measures morality by the comfort of the crowd. And the crowd in 2002 was certain. Private spaceflight is absurd. Reusable rockets are a fantasy. The money should go to feeding the poor, to healing the sick. Beautiful, abstract, morally untouchable categories. If I had loved everyone, I would have listened to them. I would have aimed for a target they approved of, a small, safe, incremental target. I would have donated the money and felt the warm glow of abstract virtue. But I did not love everyone. I loved the idea, the specific, concrete, technical idea of that footprint. And that kind of love is ruthless. It required me to be indifferent to the feelings of the many in order to be faithful to the potential of the one future astronaut, the one future moment of discovery, the one specific, real footprint in red dust. They call that cruelty. They say, how can you care about Mars when children are hungry on Earth? It is the ultimate weapon of abstract empathy. It uses one real suffering to shame you away from another real possibility. It is a moral guilt trip, and it is designed to paralyze. Here is my answer. I am not a sun. I cannot end all hunger, but I can be a very specific kind of tool, a wrench, a circuit, an engine. I can solve for X, and my X is the physics of interplanetary travel. If I solve for X, I open a door. That door may, in ways I cannot predict, help feed those children. By creating new resources, by forcing new technologies, by inspiring a generation to think in terms of abundance rather than scarcity. But I cannot solve for X if I am constantly trying to be the sun. If I am trying to feel the warmth for every suffering simultaneously, I will be frozen in place. I will generate light, but no lift. This is the second trap. Abstract empathy is a form of moral cowardice. It allows you to take a position where you cannot be held accountable for failure, because your goal was never achievable in the first place. I care about world peace. Wonderful. What is your specific, verifiable action? I care. It's a statement of sentiment, not a commitment of resources. It costs you nothing but air. And because it costs nothing, it is worth nothing. Real empathy, concrete empathy, is a brutal accounting. It starts with a confession. I cannot help everyone. Therefore, I must choose who I will fail. This is the terrifying math of adulthood. Every yes is 1,000 no's. Every path chosen is a forest of paths abandoned. When I choose to allocate capital and genius and years of human life to a stainless steel starship, I am choosing not to allocate it to curing a specific disease or building low-income housing or cleaning the oceans. I am failing those causes. I am looking at real, individual suffering in those domains and saying, I will not help you. That is the concrete reality. Abstract empathy cannot stomach this math. It wants you to believe you can do it all, care for all, feel for all. It is a lie, the lie of infinite capacity. The only way to do something of consequence is to choose your failure, to say, this is the hill I will die on. These are the individuals, the problems, the footprints I will serve. All others I abandon to their fate or to the care of other, more specific tools. This feels cruel. It is the opposite. It is respect. To look at a vast, complex problem like poverty and say, I care about this, is to disrespect every individual trapped within it. Because you are claiming a connection you have not earned, a responsibility you will not discharge. You are turning their suffering into a backdrop for your own moral selfie. True respect is to say, this problem is too complex for my model. I do not understand its levers. My intervention would likely cause harm or be waste. I will stand aside. I will focus where my specific, weird, obsessive skills can actually move the needle from A to B. That is a harder, humbler, and far more empathetic stance, which brings me to the third and most dangerous trap. Abstract empathy becomes a license for hatred. This is the psychological pivot few see coming. When your identity is built on caring for the oppressed, for the victim, for everyone, then anyone who complicates that narrative becomes a threat. They are not just wrong, they are evil. Because if they are right, or even partially right, then your beautiful, simple, abstract feeling is polluted. Your moral identity is under attack. So you must destroy them. You see this in every mob, online and off. The target is never attacked for a concrete, fixable mistake. They are attacked as a symbol, a heretic. They have betrayed the abstraction. And so, abstract empathy, the love for everyone, curdles into a righteous, passionate hatred for the specific individual who stands in front of you. It justifies cruelty, exclusion, the ruination of careers and lives because it is done in the name of the greater good, the protected group, the everyone you are sworn to defend. And I have been that symbol, so have many others. We are not humans in that moment. We are obstacles to a feeling. And feelings, when sanctified, demand human sacrifice. So what is the way out? How do we build a morality that is both powerful and kind, that can reach for the stars without crushing the individual in the dirt? We must adopt the engineer's empathy. The engineer does not love the bridge. The engineer loves the specific driver who will cross it in a storm, trusting their life to his calculations. That love is not a feeling. It is a series of constraints: tensile strength, load capacity, wind shear, corrosion resistance. The engineer's love is the margin of safety. It is the extra 20% strength no one will ever see. But that will be the difference between life and death on a cold, rainy night. Translate this to human systems. Do not care for the poor. That is a son's love. Instead, build a specific, replicable, scalable system that lowers the cost of energy to near zero. Because energy is the fundamental commodity. With cheap, abundant energy, you can desalinate water, grow food indoors, power hospitals, and automate drudgery. You can change the material conditions of poverty without ever once uttering a sentimental word about it. That is the engineer's empathy. It is concrete, measurable, and it works while you sleep. Do not care for the disabled. Build a direct neural interface that restores agency to one specific paralyzed limb. Solve for that signal, that synapse, that person's desire to hold a cup of water by themselves. The engineer's empathy is quiet. It is often invisible. It does not trend. It does not earn social capital. In fact, it often looks like its opposite. It looks like ignoring the crying person to fix the broken valve that is about to flood the room. The abstract empathist will scream, "You monster! Can't you see they're suffering? Comfort them." The engineer knows that in 5 minutes, the comfort will be irrelevant if they are all underwater. The engineer fixes the valve, and then, once the system is safe, they can turn to the individual, not with a grand, abstract love, but with a specific practical question. Are you hurt? Here is a blanket. The danger has passed. We have built a society that rewards the performance of empathy and punishes the practice of it. We promote the person who gives the beautiful, tearful speech about unity. We suspect the person in the back, silent, running the numbers on a cheaper battery cell. We call the first one a leader, the second one a sociopath. We have it backwards. The future, if we are to have a future worth living in, will not be built by those who feel for everyone. It will be built by those who care excruciatingly, specifically, and technically for someone, for something, for a single, concrete, graspable piece of the puzzle. Your mission, if you choose to accept it, is not to expand your heart until it encompasses the globe. It is to sharpen your mind and your will until you can solve for one single, meaningful X. Find your footprint, not humanity's footprint, yours, the one mark only you can make, the one problem that, in its specific granular details, calls to the specific granular skills that are yours alone. Then, love that footprint with a ruthless, focused, and unsentimental passion. Protect it from the waves of abstract feeling that will try to wash it away. Build for it. Work for it. Fail for it. And understand that in doing so, You will be accused of not caring. You will be called cold, cruel, a monster who looks at the suffering of the world and turns away to play with rockets or code or equations. Let them talk. While they are busy feeling for everyone, you will be the one quietly, concretely, building a raft for the one person you can actually reach. And in the end, 1,000 such rafts, built by 1,000 such monsters, will save more lives than the sun ever could. Start building your raft. The water is rising, and the sun, for all its glorious warmth, is not coming down to help. Ask the concrete questions, not how do I solve poverty, but should I buy Dave a sandwich? And if I do, should I sit and eat it with him and listen to his story? That is the model. That is the design constraint. Start there, build from there, and watch as the grand, cruel empathy of the crowd fades into noise, and the quiet, precise, demanding work of actual care begins. It will not get you likes. It will not make you famous. It might even make you misunderstood. But it is the only empathy that doesn't explode on the launch pad. It is the only kind that reaches orbit.